In this video, I'm going to walk through 3 mistakes I see service businesses make when implementing automation into their operations and the systematic approach you can take to implementing automation to avoid these mistakes. Quick intro on me. My name is Amir. I used to run a project management consulting business as a mechanical engineer, helping potash mines manage these large capital projects. From there, the last couple of years, I've been advising businesses on their IT strategy. And now I help businesses streamline their operations through AI and automation, as well as just generally improving their software systems. So most businesses these days are looking to implement AI and automation to streamline their operations, but they're not actually getting the value out of the systems. And the reason is businesses get excited about the tool, they dive in head first, then 6 months later, they're like, you know what, this isn't actually working. And the reason being is they're like this dog here. So if you've ever seen the movie Up, it's like a Disney movie. There's this dog in it called Doug. And every time he sees a squirrel, he gets distracted and just like runs after it. So it's really like an analogy of this shiny object syndrome. And as a result, just by jumping from tool to tool, automation, they're not actually getting the value and considering what problem are they actually trying to solve with this automation. So what are they doing wrong? They have this shiny object syndrome, but they need to do these first 3 things to actually get value out of it. They need to understand their business processes. They need to consolidate their tool stack, and they need to organize their data in a central source of truth. So today, I'm going to talk about why understanding your processes matter more than any tool you buy. I'll show you why having fewer tools often gives you better results. I'll explain why trying to automate without a central source of truth is like trying to build a house without a foundation. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly why your current automation attempts might not be working. And more importantly, you'll have a clear roadmap to fixing it. So problem number 1 is you can't actually optimize a process that doesn't exist. Most business owners I talk with who have a growing business lack documented processes and are overwhelmed. They have 20 different tools they're trying to manage. They have a CRM, project management system. They have a bunch of spreadsheets, like just things aren't connected. So to solve this, they think, you know what, I'm going to look up AI automation. I hear this will save time. So they see some YouTube videos or LinkedIn posts about how this automation is going to change their life. They comment leads. I'm sure we've all seen these LinkedIn posts. Download it, sign up for the tool, plug in this automation. They get excited. They start trying to connect everything together. But what they're really doing is just automating chaos, because they're going to spend 2 weeks setting up some flow in Zapier. Then they're going to hear about Make.com, which is another automation platform. And they're going to abandon all of that and start over. Then they're going to think, you know what? I probably just need end-to-end and it's going to solve everything. So they go to that. Meanwhile, their business processes are still a mess. Their team still doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. Information is still scattered all over the place. But hey, at least they've got some kind of automation working, right? Basically, what I'm trying to say is you can't automate a process that doesn't exist. In mining, we don't just go start throwing equipment at site and hope for the best. We need to understand how things are interconnected and then design the whole operation first to actually produce value. Your business works the exact same way. Think of your business as a system. So here's how I actually think about business operations using my engineering background. I look at every business like it's a factory or a processing mill, like the ones I used to work in. You've got raw materials coming in, that's your leads, your client information, whatever. You've got processes that transform those materials into something valuable, and you've got finished products going out. And that's your delivered services and your client results. So look at it this way. A basic representation of the service businesses is you've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got onboarding, you've got service delivery, and then hopefully you can repeat the process and sell them more things, sell other people, so on and so forth. But most businesses aren't built like a factory. They got a bunch of random equipment scattered around a field and everyone's just figuring out as they go. Let me give you a real example I experienced recently. So I was working with this content agency and they had this onboarding process that they didn't know was inefficient until they wrote out the steps of the process. So they'd have a kickoff call with a new client who had filled out an onboarding form. And this call had 3 objectives: intro the team, ideate together in content, and get the social logins so they could actually post the content. And then after the call, they go away and create content based on what they learned. But there was a couple of problems here after I asked a few questions. One was, why is there 2 people on this call? And I found out one was literally just there to get the social logins. The other problem was they had information to show up to that call with ideas for approval. So the form the client already filled in beforehand had enough information that they could have came prepared with ideas. But instead, they often waited at the end of the onboarding, like after the call, to actually create the ideas. So the client would have to wait a week before they saw anything. So these are the problems they saw. They already had all the information they need before the call. They could have prepped those content ideas ahead of time and showed up to the kickoff call with actual work to present. And then why do we need 2 people? So I suggested a very simple process change. Develop the ideas before the meeting with information you already have. Send it to the client and customer success manager before the call so they have time to digest everything. Have the CSM review the ideas and get feedback with the client. Provide the CSM with a standard operating procedure, because before I was like, do you guys have an SOP for if one person want to do this? Not really, just like the one person knows how to do it. So it's like, let's make an SOP so they can make sure that, you know, they have the social logins and the 2FA, which is a big deal, and give that second person their time back by just not having them on the meeting. So now, instead, when they hop on a kickoff call, they're not just going to be asking questions. Instead, they're going to be saying, based on what you already told us, here are some content ideas we already developed for you. The client experience will be way better, instead of them thinking like, okay, now I got to figure out, like, I thought this was what I hired you for, like what I need to be posting. But they're going to be like, holy crap, these people really know what they're doing. So it's the same team, it's the same tools, the same amount of work, but now the process is reorganizing the correct order and makes sense. That's what I mean by building the value of understanding your process first instead of jumping right into automation. You could have ended up automating an ineffective process. You've got to understand how the work should flow before you try to automate it. So that's problem number 1. So the first thing you need to do is map out your processes. You could use a Google Doc, a piece of paper, a whiteboard, a digital whiteboard. I use something called Whimsical. That's an example right here that I'm using. But basically write out step by step how you do the process. You want to identify where it can be streamlined. So the example I gave earlier, we reorder things instead of waiting for after the call to do some ideation. We did it beforehand. Same idea here. And then here's an example of a process map. So, you know, we would take the time to understand, okay, what are you doing today? So here's a person wanted to create custom lead magnets for every cold email that someone replied to. So they get a cold email response. They'd research the website manually about the client. They create YouTube video scripts for them using their framework. They'd add it to a Google Doc, save it to the correct folder manually, add it to the CRM manually, and then send it to the prospect. Meanwhile, what they actually wanted to do, and we wouldn't have known how to improve this if we didn't know all the steps in the process, we were able to get the call, notify them in Slack, so then that way they know, hey, this automation is about to kick off. I should expect a draft shortly. We then scrape the info off their website, use an AI agent using their framework to draft this YouTube script, which keyword here is draft. You're not going to send this directly to the client. We're going to save this to a Google Doc automatically, save it in the correct folder, add it to the CRM or PM system automatically, depending on where you want to store it. Notify the person in Slack and link it to the smart lead inbox of like the reply so they can reply directly. Manually edit the script real quick, click this link, and then send it to the prospect. So all these yellow steps are pretty much automated, and then you've got a couple things left to do manually. So this is quite a bit of time savings accordingly. So you want to do this at a high level for your marketing, your sales, your onboarding, your service delivery, finance and ops, customer success, and retention. So that's number 1. Number 2, the problem that people run into when they look at automation is they have way too many tools. Business owners often think more tools equals more capability, but in reality, every tool you add is another potential failure point. You want to think about it like this. Imagine you've got 2 different project management systems, 2 different cloud storage locations, and 4 different communication channels. What happens when you try to automate something? Do you just connect them all? Do you only connect a couple? I see businesses using ClickUp, Slack, and Trello all running at the same time because there's no processes and standards, and people are just using whatever they think is good. They've got stuff in Google Drive and Dropbox with no folder structure. So like, why do we need 2 different types of cloud storage? Doesn't really make sense. Some people are communicating through email, Slack, text messages, and probably carrier pigeons, to be honest, because there's just no groundwork set of how to actually use the tools effectively. And then they wonder why their automations keep breaking or just quite simply not getting the information in the right places. Every connection between systems is a place where something can go wrong. The more systems you have, the more connections you need, the more things that can break. It's just math. So here's an image here. This is something called Metcalfe's law, and it's based off of the more things you have in a network, the more valuable the network is. But this can also be translated to complexity. So the more people in a system or the more tools in a system, so think of these phones as like tools, right? It increases complexity by n squared the more things you add. So imagine you have all of these different softwares. Look at how many, if you wanted to automate the information between all of them, this is what it would have to look like, which is absolutely horrible. So first look and see if there's something you can do to consolidate your tech stack to limit the number of these connections. You probably have reasons for using all those tools, but maybe like you just kind of added things as you had problems and you didn't really reevaluate after you grew a little bit. So try to see if someone added a feature to their software that maybe could solve the problem so you can consolidate it down. A simple system that actually works is infinitely better than a complex system that breaks all the time. So step 2 is to consolidate your tools. Look at your existing tech stack and compare the features of each one. See if you can simplify what you need and eliminate unnecessary tools. If you can, consolidate them, put the data in one place, and then only then would I consider looking at automation. So problem number 3 is having no central source of truth. So even if you get your processes mapped out and your tools consolidated, there's still one more thing that'll kill your automation efforts, and that's not having a central source of truth for your data or using a spreadsheet for it. Here's what I mean by that. If I asked you right now to show me all the information about your biggest client, their contact details, project history, payment status, current deliverables, team notes, everything, would there be one place you could go to pull that up? Probably not. Or would you have to check your CRM, your project management tool, then some spreadsheets and dig through some email threads? If it's the latter, then you don't have a central source of truth. And without that, your automations are going to provide you with limited value. They might technically work, but you're not going to give you the insights you actually need to improve your business. You'll be able to automate some basic tasks, sure, but you won't be able to do anything sophisticated because your data is scattered everywhere. I liken this, again, to like running a factory without any measurement tools. You could keep the machines running, but you have no idea if they're running efficiently. You don't know where the bottlenecks are. You can't optimize anything because you can't measure anything. This is why I always tell clients, before you automate anything, let's get your data organized. Pick one system to be your source of truth. Maybe it's your CRM. Maybe it's your project management tool. It doesn't really matter which one it is. You pick one and make sure all your important business information lives in there. Sometimes this isn't fully possible, so like don't take this as gospel. It has to be perfect, but do your best to get as close as possible. And once you have your foundation and have clean, organized, centralized data, that's when automation becomes really powerful. Instead of just moving information around, you can actually generate insights. Instead of just saving time on individual tasks, you can start optimizing your entire operation because you'll have that one pane of glass to see how everything is connected and what things are all happening in your business. But if you skip this step, if you try to automate on top of scattered, messy data, you're going to end up with scattered, messy automations. So action step number 3 is implement a central source of truth. If your business is a one-off service type like recruiting, I recommend using your CRM or ATS. If your business is very deliverable heavy or custom projects like a content business or ads agency, then use your project management tool, something like ClickUp, or build a custom one with a tool like Airtable. Mandate everyone on the team to store key information in there. This is usually the hardest step because it requires some discipline to adopt something new and build new habits. You've got to resist the urge to keep going back to that old spreadsheet. So in summary, you want to map your processes. I don't mean creating some fancy flowcharts that just look good in presentations. I actually mean documenting how things get done in your business. Start with one process. Maybe it's the one that's painful. Maybe it's client onboarding. Maybe it's how you deliver a core service. Whatever it is, write down every step, every handoff, every decision point. You're going to probably discover that what you think happens and what actually happens are two different things. That's normal. That's the whole point of this exercise, so you don't build bad automations. Step 2 is consolidate your tools. Look at everything you're currently using and ask yourself, do I really need this? Can I get the same functionality through your systems? Remember that every tool you eliminate is one less thing that can break, and it decreases complexity. Step 3 is to centralize your data. Pick one system to be your source of truth and start moving everything there. This is usually the hardest step because it requires some discipline. You've got to resist the urge to keep going back to that old spreadsheet or that other tool with one feature that you like. Step 4, then and only then automate. But start small. Pick one simple repetitive task and automate it first. Get it working reliably and then move on to the next one. If you do steps 1 through 3, I guarantee you're already going to improve the efficiency in your business. The key to do all of this is do it systematically. Don't try to automate everything at once. Don't get distracted by the latest shiny tool. Just work through the process step by step. And here's the thing. When you do it this way, when you build that foundation first, the automations actually work. You'll save real time, reduce real errors, and you'll actually be able to scale your business instead of just making your chaos more efficient. Lastly, if you want help, obviously everything I presented here is very high level and there's more to this. So if you're a service business looking for help to map out your processes, develop your central source of truth, and automate your repetitive tasks that are preventing you from scaling, you can check out my website in the description. I hope this video helps you avoid automating a mess.